Culture swap. Ellie,
Swap my culture.
what's this part of the show?
In this part of the show, traditionally, me and Liam pick something that we're going to talk about and sort of do a bit of an in-depth review about. But when we have a guest on, we get our guest to give us what they want us to watch, and then all three of us discuss it.
Hi.
Exactly. So,
God.
Ashleigh, what did you recommend to us and why?
I picked a little 1995 film by the name of The Last Supper. And it's because this is a film that's kind of stayed with me for a while. I officially watched it and reviewed it last year. And that was because I was having this moment, and it happens a lot. I don't know how things work in the UK. But here, if you're watching back in the days of the lovely VHS, for those of you who are too young to know, it's sad that we're at a point in our lives where that's a sentence we have to say. But one of my favourite things about VHS tapes was all the trailers of films that show started. My favourite aspect. And during the 90s, a trailer that kept being played in a lot of VHS movies I was watching was this movie called The Last Supper. And I always remembered the trailer. I remembered the music that was in the trailer. I kind of remembered who popped into it and essentially what was going on. And over the years, the trailer would just pop back into my head. I'm like, what was that movie? And there was something about it that just always stayed with me. So last year I tracked it down. I'm like, oh, I found it. And I immediately watched it. And as soon as I was done watching it, I went to a friend, started a message. I'm like, I freaking loved this movie. And I'm like, you have to go watch it so that then we can sit and talk about it, because I just want to talk about it because, oh my God, it was so good. And then he went and watched it, and then he's like, oh my God, it was really good. I'm like, right? So then we're just sitting there, we're just typing, and I'm just like, this really sucks because the typing part is annoying. But we were just going back and forth for ages, and then when we were done, I'm like, I still want to talk about it. I want other people to know about this. Why did nobody ever talk about it? It's such a good film. That was basically why I picked that one, because still, it's not one that I mention it to people and I haven't really had anyone respond with, oh yeah, I know that film. People are like, never heard of it. I'm like, that's why I bring.
And that was my response when you said that this was the film you wanted to do. It's like, cool, never heard of it, but I'm always happy to watch whatever.
People immediately think they hear The Last Supper and they immediately think that it's something religious, and it's not.
Which is my assumption, because I know that Ellie has like she's had this huge religious upbringing and she can't get enough of it. So I was like, oh, Ellie's going to enjoy all the religion of this because she loves that.
Liam likes telling people that I'm religious, which I'm not.
You went to Sunday school, and that makes you religious in my book.
Yeah.
Going to Sunday school doesn't make you religious because you're not the one who chose to go there.
Exactly.
So I never say Ellie's religious. I say she had a religious upbringing.
Which is not true.
You went to Sunday school. Guess what I was doing on Sunday?
There are some things I could guess, Liam, which I don't want to say in polite company.
It wasn't learning about God and all that.
Good. Well,
I was
anyway,
watching cartoons in my pajamas.
the religious thing is irrelevant because it isn't a religious film.
It's not. So this is the sort of film, right, where I think it is going to be hard for us to discuss without revealing our own political leanings. So I'm really hoping we're all on the same page. Otherwise, this could get real awkward real fast.
I would assume
this
that
is a horror
based on
movie
the
about
discussion,
people oppressing people like me.
I would assume, based on the discussion Ellie and I were having before Liam showed up, I assume that Ellie and I are in the same category. Liam, I don't know about. I mean...
Well, unless I've misjudged Liam our entire friendship, I believe he is also in that category too.
Okay, cool. Good. I'm wondering what discussion I missed out on now, though.
You'll never know, Liam. Oh my God, what's happening? My phone is freaking out, sorry.
Okay.
Oh, well, everyone can still hear me, so it's all fine.
Yep.
There we go. Okay, let's just carry on.
And I can see you too, perfectly.
Good.
Yeah, well, I'm waiting for you to carry on with the discussion.
Okay, sorry, no, my phone...
You started making a point and then you got distracted by your phone.
I don't remember what I was saying.
Okay. Okay, so The Last Supper, which... Ellie, had you heard of this before?
Nope, I've never heard of it.
Sort of a very, very brief, synopsis is it's about a group of 5 friends who get into the habit of inviting people over who their views don't necessarily align, and they have a dinner with them to give them a chance, and that rarely goes well. And most of the dinners end with whoever they've invited being poisoned.
Yeah.
Lovely way
That's
to end a dinner party.
Yeah, exactly. I thought as a concept that was an interesting idea. Like, not knowing anything about this film, and I deliberately didn't like look into it, read anything, watch any trailers. I didn't really know what to expect when it started, and you had like the first sort of like dinner table scene
with Bill Paxton.
And then I was like, oh yeah, this has got interesting. And then you could kind of like, you see what they're doing.
You think it's very benign, people just having a dinner party, and then you hear the words, Hitler had the right idea, and you're like, oh shit, this is where we're at. It's okay. Just that I'm pretty sure the audience, if you don't really know what you're going for, because these are all people who are self-proclaimed Democrats.
Yeah.
And so they have very democratic opinions. And then they start talking to people who are definitely not of those beliefs. And each person they talk to has, most of the things that they talk about pretty benign. But then there's going to be that one thing that's just not acceptable in polite society. Yes. And I think the way everybody reacts to that one sentence, especially with the fact that one of the people at the table is Jewish, and for Bill Paxton's character to say Hitler had the right idea, the fact everybody's like choking on their food, frozen, forks dropping, is I think exactly the same way the audience was viewing that, going, did it say that? Like, oh shit. Like, nobody,
it's also,
I don't think anybody has a good reaction to that sentence.
No. Definitely not.
It's also, I love the way they it like escalates and de-escalates in that first scene, because he says Hitler had the right idea and everyone freezes and is like, what? And then he goes, oh no, not about killing the Jews, and everyone's like, oh okay, that's not what he's saying. And then he's like, because they lied about that. And you're like, oh
it
I see.
Worse.
So it's like
yeah,
it's just so well written, the way they sort of take you to that, oh my god, this guy's a horrible person, then lower it again, and then are like, no, we're just kidding, he's a horrible person.
Yeah.
I think it's such an interesting film. I love the concept behind it. The whole concept came about from Stacy Title. It's a female director. I believe the film was shot in a total of 18 days. And one of the benefits is the fact that a lot of the scenes are shot kind of from the perspective of the person who's at the end of the table about to get killed.
Yeah.
So they could pretty much record all those scenes back to back and not even need the other person there. So that's fine. But the subject, she came about the idea for the film while she was in college, and remembering listening to everybody on the college campus bitching about the state of the world and the state of the country, and having all these issues and everybody having some political ideology and almost nobody agreeing. But the point was, not only were people not even attempting to agree, it was a bunch of people sitting around complaining about the state of the world and not actually doing anything about it. And she said it was so frustrating listening to people like that, and that's kind of what inspired the film. And you really do get that, because these start off as such benign people, and the whole concept of how they got to where they were. I mean, when it starts off with the spoilers. I don't care about spoilers. The movie came out in 1995. Okay, for God's sake, move on. But the fact is, when Bill Paxton's character dies, they didn't set out to murder him, and it isn't actually murder. It's manslaughter. Yeah. Turns out he's a serial killer, and he did attack first, and things happened, and he ends up dying in self-defense. But then it kind of sparks the idea of they could get away with it, and they come up with the idea of, what if we invite someone who has a certain opinion or a political belief that is not beneficial to society. We invite them, we hear them out. If we are not able, through the art of discussion, to change their opinion, we kill them. And most of the people, they're like, we can't go around killing people, you're freaking insane. And eventually they decide, sure. The first person they officially invite is a priest, or pastor, whichever, who they're thinking, what's so bad about this? And it all starts fine until he goes into his very determined speech. Cameron Diaz's character was the one who invited him. She had interviewed him for college, I believe.
Yeah, that's right.
And he sits down, and she spurs him on to bring up the one topic she knows is why she's picked him. They're all like, where is this all going? And he immediately goes into how homosexuals, sweet Jesus, homosexuals are a disease, and that AIDS is the cure for ridding them of the world. And they're all just like, oh, I see why you picked him now. And they're just like, but they're trying their hardest to try and give this man of God the benefit of the doubt, trying to talk him around, and they're just having no fucking luck, and they're like, okay, you're out. Like, he seems like such a sweet man, but as soon as he starts going, gay is a disease and AIDS is the cure, and I'm like, there is no redeeming this man. He's dead. He is dead.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the scene where it was like, it's interesting because like I said, when it starts, not everyone is necessarily on board with this idea, and they come around, and during that first dinner scene, you can tell they're still like, right, we're not entirely sure this is a good idea, so let's really try and give him as many opportunities to get out of this as possible. And he just digs himself into essentially his own grave.
He really does.
Yeah.
I mean, he's also, it was funny watching the character himself, because he's preaching about sin and all this stuff while he's gorging himself on the food and wine that they offer him, in showing that he himself is a full representation of the sin of gluttony. And there he is going to town, doesn't have a problem, but oh yeah, no, we can't have gay people. I however, I can commit whatever sin I want, but gays, oh no, can't have that. And it's amazing how they originally start off, and they kind of, I wouldn't say it's a montage, but they do go through them quickly, one after another, and there's usually like, it starts off with the first couple, it shows them like seeming like a civilized human being, and then instantly there's that one thing, it's like, no, I was wrong about you, and then they kind of stop showing that aspect, and then just give you that one thing about them, giving their one line of why they're there. So you've got like Mark Hamill, who starts going into his speech saying women cannot say no to sex if they have said yes to a date. Then they have made a commitment, therefore they must do it. And he says there's no such thing. He says, no, rape is a horrible, horrible thing. I just don't believe that women who go around saying they were raped. He says, I believe it was consensual. And everybody's like, are you fucking insane? It just keeps getting worse. It's just one after another. You've got racists, homophobes, anti-Semitics. It's like, oh my god, it's like the very scum of society are coming to dinner. And it's horrible, and of course they're all getting bumped off and buried in the backyard, and they're just overrun with tomatoes because they've got too many bodies in the backyard.
They plant a tomato bush on every grave they dig, and these tomato bushes just grow so quickly and so abundant with tomatoes that there are tomatoes everywhere.
I almost feel like you could make like an entire film out of just one of these conversations. Like,
oh, definitely.
Yeah, it's interesting. It was interesting seeing where the breaking point was with the girl who was like 17 years old, I think.
So that's once they've started to. You've got Cameron Diaz's character. I can't remember the character names of the main five.
That's okay.
But Cameron Diaz's character has started to, like, you've had a couple of scenes of her in the garden crying.
Which is weird. I didn't think she'd be the first character to break.
No, well, it's weird because at the beginning, her and the Jewish guy that stabs the first person they kill, they're both, at the beginning, they're kind of on board with it all. Like, she invites the first real person they actually kill, and Mark has killed someone. But by the end of the film, they are the two that are like, they're not even saying we shouldn't kill people necessarily, but they are saying we're just killing people at this point. We're not doing what we agreed we'd do.
That's the amazing turn of events that I really love in that film. It's literally, it was like at the beginning it was half and half. Half of them did not want to do it, and the other half were like, yeah, sure, why not? And then by the time you're at the end of the film, the half who didn't want to do it are so into it, and the half who did want to do it have suddenly completely changed their mind, showing that people are capable of change, and you don't really know what you actually believe in happen until you're actually living the moment. It's one thing to say something, it's another thing to actually do it. So that's another great message of the film. There's so much messages and imagery in this. The fact that, they're eating all these tomatoes, and it's almost like the tomatoes are poisoning them, because they do start to get sick from eating all the tomatoes. It's like they're being poisoned by their evil deed. And so that's a great little thing. It's crazy how it affects each of them, and it does literally that by the end of it, they're not giving people a chance anymore. They're not waiting for them to argue their case. They're not trying to change their mind. They're just flat out going, I don't agree with you, therefore I will kill you, which is the whole point of them becoming the very thing that they were arguing against, that they wanted to be about discussion and changing people's minds through discussion, and they've completely started acting like everybody else, going, fuck you, if you do not agree with my opinion, then you are out of here, adios, rest in peace, you're going in the backyard. And then of course they all get their comeuppance, but yeah, they pretty much, I think they officially know that they've gone off the deep end when they kill the poor librarian just because she didn't like one book and she thought that it wasn't appropriate. And oh god, what was that book again? I know it's the same. Catcher in the Rye? Yes, Catcher in the Rye.
Yeah, Catcher in the Rye. It's full of swear words.
Which has been a controversial book for a long time. And of course, by the time they walk away, they come back and she's got a freaking knife in her back. And he's just the guy. He's sitting there and he's going, "She was not useful. I can't believe." He was so calm about the whole ordeal, just pouring himself another drink while there's a dead body at the table. And they're just like, "Are you out of your fucking mind?" And that's when you know that they've really lost it. That you're now killing people over some really dumb shit, like because you didn't like a book. Come on, it's a book.
Yeah.
And
so
yeah,
there's like it's not really a thought experiment. We've definitely discussed this in the past. I think Ellie maybe, but there's a topic they keep coming back to, which is if you had the opportunity to go back to 1909 that they say, like before Hitler has done all of Hitler's bad things, if you could meet him when he was like art student or whatever it was, knowing what he would go on to be, would you stop him? And I thought I'd open that question for us to discuss.
It's a very hard question. Everybody wants to say yes because it's Hitler. But the thing is, you could only make that decision if you were comfortable with killing someone. B, you had to know ahead of time Hitler would become what he became. And I don't think anybody would have known that this Austrian kid was one day going to become a German dictator and create Nazis and all this shit and completely ruin the swastika for the Buddhists. Thanks a lot. I'm still pissed about that one. If I owned a swastika, it would be for spiritualistic reasons because I love symbology and I can't ever use a swastika because of him. But yeah, nobody can know what somebody is going to do. So we can all say in hindsight, I'd go kill him. It's like, but you wouldn't know he's going to do all those.
Yeah. Because that's the way they phrase it in the film. Isn't like at the beginning they talk about time travel and that, but in the final scene when they're talking to
Ron Perlman,
the last guy, when they're talking to him, they don't phrase it as time travel. They say, if you were in 1909 or whatever, would you do it? And I genuinely was like, well, surely that's going to be his answer is,
no.
Well, I wouldn't know. Yeah. So how could I make
he
that
actually
call?
gives a really good answer.
That's not their point. But I love that whole bit at the end.
Yeah, if you're living in a hypothetical world where time travel is real and you know what Hitler's going to do, and it's like, if you could time travel and go back and stop Hitler, would you stop Hitler? It's like, well, that's a different story if I knew everything that's going to happen. But if you're saying, if you lived in the 1910s, 1920s, and you met Hitler, would you kill him? It's like, he was a freaking art student. Why am I going to go kill an art student? Yeah. It's like, no, because I'm not a killer. It's you have to be careful of how you phrase the question. So
I guess it's also relevant to the film because, well, I mean, it's relevant to the film, obviously, but I mean more specifically because their sort of justification for killing these people is they might go on to do something bad, which isn't time travel because they don't know what these people are going to do. And I guess that's sort of the point
But
of
equally,
it.
What they consider as to be what is bad is also by their definition of what good and bad is, which is also problematic because they have a very left-leaning definition,
Yes.
which, while we might necessarily agree with that, isn't exactly how, like, the law would see it.
Yeah, the fact is that obviously these people have less than lovely ideals and morals about the world, but you've selected one aspect of a person's life that you don't agree with. You don't know anything else about them, and the problem is that they get to a point where they actually never at any point do they try to understand why the person feels that way. They only try to argue with them as to why thinking that way is wrong. They don't actually try to say, but tell me, why do you believe that? Why is that your stance? And that's basically the point of why Stacy created the film. It's nobody tries to understand anybody. You can't fix a problem by just getting rid of it. You're not actually fixing it. That only by truly trying to analyze it and actually getting to the bottom of it can you fix it. And these people were no different to the people they were killing, because they were firmly believing their opinion was the right one, which is exactly the same as the people they're talking to. Whether you agree with it or not, that person believes their opinion is the right one. So who are you to decide that you can just get rid of them and kill them just because you don't agree?
Yeah.
We're all going to agree or disagree on some dumb shit from time to time, and if you're a part of film Twitter, you're really going to disagree over some dumb shit all the time.
Yeah, this would
But
be
the moment people start going, you should die, it's like, well, you're...
Yeah, this...
Yes.
Yeah, if you did like a modern version of this, and it was like, right, I'm going to look through your Twitter feed and determine if you're worthy of living or not.
Oh, God.
That would be some interesting results there, I think. But yeah, I really liked... let me get his name, because I don't... Courtney B. Vance? Probably Vance. Mm-hmm. Courtney B. Vance as Luke. He, to me, seemed to start off as somewhat level-headed, and then he smacks a sheriff in the face with a shovel, and you're like, oh, he's really gone off the deep end.
He really has.
Is that before or after the 17-year-old girl that they're going to kill? Because that was the point where, like, whichever one of those comes first is the point where I was like, oh, he's gone now. He's too far. Because with the 17-year-old girl, she's talking about how she believes that by giving out free condoms and sex education, they're encouraging young people to have sex and become, like, unmoral.
Was she also,
and then he says
the pro-life advocate?
You need a good fucking. No, there's a different one that's a pro-life advocate. Okay. I don't think she specifies on that. She's just talking about the sex part.
Okay.
Because there's another lady who's a pro-life...
they had a lot of shitty people at the dinner table.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then when Luke's talking to that 17-year-old, he becomes...
very aggressive.
Like, terrible. Yeah, and he says to her, like, you need a good fucking, and is almost, like, threatening her directly. Yeah. Or he might not mean it that way, but that is how it is coming across to this poor 17-year-old girl, and everyone else is like, Luke, shut the fuck up. Not everyone. The ones that are still kind of sensible are like, Luke, what the fuck are you doing? This is terrible. We need to go talk. And he just keeps trying to give her wine.
Especially given her age. She's a teenager. She doesn't know any better. She has time to learn and grow. So you've already, like, determined that she's had a long life. She's set in her ways. It's like, calm the fuck down.
Yeah, if teenage Liam was invited to that dinner party, I don't think he would have made it to the end.
I have...
Well, no, but they would have, not for your views, they would have just killed you to save the world.
Yeah.
They'd have been like, this kid's got something wrong with him, we need to get him out.
I have a hard question to ask. Of the people who were invited to the dinner, which one would you have had the hardest time with? I have an idea of who Ellie's might be, but there are a lot of shitty people. And I think most decent human beings would not agree with any of their ideologies, but which one is the worst and most offensive to you personally?
Probably the vicar, I guess, because, I mean, he directly wants to kill people like me, so I guess that would be my answer. I mean, I wouldn't want to kill anyone, because I could never kill someone. That would
we're not talking about killing people, just which one is the one you're gonna...
Oh, which one do I just disagree with the most? Him.
What about you, Liam?
I feel like him. I'm trying to remember like what the other like topics I discussed, but I feel like he gets the most screen time.
We had the homophobic Protestant reverend. We had the chauvinistic rape apologist person. We had had a neo-Nazi, an anti-environmentalist, which was Jason Alexander's character. We have a racist, anti-Semitic person, pro-life advocate, censorship advocate, hobo assailant, critics of gay rights, and then of course you had the young girl who had her issues with sex education.
What was the censorship one? Remind me.
Is that the librarian?
Yeah, I think that was the librarian.
I mean, I have issues with censorship, but not strong enough that I'm like, oh, you need to die because you don't like Catcher in the Rye. I think I agree with Ellie, but I think a big part of that is because that is the character that you see them discussing their views the most. Like, I was surprised when Jason Alexander popped up how brief his scene was.
Jason Alexander is actually, I don't know if he still is, but at the time he was married to Stacy Title's sister.
Oh, really?
And one of the actors is also Stacy Title's husband. So it's like a family event.
Yeah. Yeah, because he was in... Seinfeld would have been happening around this time. That would have already started, wouldn't it? And obviously, I have very fond memories of him being in The Burning, I believe it is, which is this like adorable like 80s slasher movie that he's in.
I watched that last year.
Yeah, it's wonderful, and it's just
he
just pops up. Yeah, I love it.
It was horrible, especially when you know it's done by the Weinstein Company and Weinstein's brother, who wrote and
they did
it. And the fact that there's so much that's sexualized about, and you see Weinstein, I'm like, and it was very disturbing to watch in hindsight. I'm like, it's like a raper's manual, for God's sake. That's very serious.
Am I misremembering the film now?
How long's it been since you watched it?
4 years, I think.
Maybe it's just because I'm a woman I look at it.
That is entirely possible.
But I watched it and I walked out of it going, this movie was so rapey. There was like consent issues everywhere. You had guys spying on women in showers. You had guys trying to pressure women into having sex. I was just like, the crazy.
That sounds very much like Porky's.
I'm sure it was the era. A lot of those
that is true.
Films are the same. But
to answer your question, I think I'm going to be more in line with what Ellie said, just because that's the one that you actually see them discussing their views the most, so you can really get on board with hating them. Whereas I feel like if the other characters had more screen time, I potentially would have been like, oh no, that person's views are also like way shittier than what you actually see in like the 2 minutes you see.
That's all fair. I mean, I think if you're a sane person, if you're a decent person, you're not going to like any of these people. But then again, they're designed not to be liked.
Yeah.
And, I mean, as soon as, first up we get a neo-Nazi, and I was just, fucking hell. And like, and he's a serial killer to boot. That's just great.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, well, I don't like it. And it was well good that I was watching it, and then sometime after I watched it, the actor passed away, and I'm just like, that's not how I want to remember you. But, I mean, obviously, big issue with homophobic priests. It's such bullshit. But even though it wasn't touched on very much, one of the ones that really gets to me is the pro-life advocate.
Yeah.
That's always a sensitive subject for me. But, I mean, I don't like any of them. But usually if I start hearing any people going on their pro-life speeches, my head wants to explode.
Yeah.
So if I was sitting there, I wouldn't have gone and slit her throat, but I would have grabbed a bottle of booze and been like, I'm out of here, because I can't deal with this shit. I think another good moment in the film is when they're talking to, I can't remember what the person's view was, but they were talking to him, and he actually started to reconsider his stance. And he was starting to think maybe
hobo assailant.
Yeah, I'm going. I'm not. Maybe. And he actually is like, you actually have a good point. And they all paused, like, what? And then they immediately started pushing him back into his old viewpoint, just so they'd have a good excuse to kill him. Like, that's fucked up. That's like entrapment.
Yeah, it's the dude. The dude with the broken arm immediately turns around to him and goes, "But you're entitled to your own views. You are entitled to your own views." And the guy goes, "Yeah, you're right. Let's beat the hobos." And then gets killed.
Yeah.
But yeah, you are like, oh, okay, so they did what they wanted, and then we're like, no, wait, we don't want you to actually change. Please go back.
Yeah, because they were really getting into the whole killing people thing, but they needed a good excuse to do it.
Yeah.
Well, except for that one guy, he's just gone on deep end, and he doesn't need an excuse anymore. It's like, oh, you don't like this book? No.
Do you think it's possible to change someone's views over the course of one conversation?
Yes. I watched it in a TED Talk video.
Is it like how to do this?
No, seriously, there was a woman who was doing a TED Talk, and she said that she used to be a member of the Westboro Baptist Church.
Yeah.
And she said...
Yes, I've seen that one.
And she said that that's just how she grew up. She didn't know any other way. She had not seen any other way. And then she said, and she had social media, and then everybody on social media was sending her death threats and all these horrible things, which kind of just kept reaffirming that she was in the right, considering how hateful people were being. And then she said one person who I think she said was gay, I'm not sure, who reached out to her and just was nice and just asked to understand her, who she is and why she feels this way. And through simple discussion and them being civil and trying to get to know her, and then them calmly explaining why things that they were doing were wrong, she started to see a completely different viewpoint, and she no longer believes that that is the right thing. She's no longer a part of the Westboro Baptist Church, and she has since changed her view. So yeah. I do think if a person is open, you can change a person's mind. But then, of course, there are some people who they are set, and there's nothing that's going to change them. It's just best to leave. Go now. Run.
Yep.
I have one last question about this.
Okay.
If we all had to have a dinner party, right, with 5 people that have opposing views, and it's us 3 hosting it, and our job is to change those 5 people's views.
Oh, God.
Which 5 do you think would be most beneficial for us to try and change their views? For, like, the world?
Well, this is such a weirdly... What? What is the... Well, I don't understand the question.
So we get to have a dinner party, right? We're hosting a dinner party.
Yeah.
We've invited 5 people over. Is that too many? Should it just be 1 each?
Probably,
All right,
yeah.
3 people. We each get to invite 1 person. And the purpose of this dinner party is for us to change their views, right?
Yeah.
Who would you invite over that you think would be most beneficial to the world for us to get their views changed?
Oh, well, I mean, is the assumption that we can change their views?
Yes.
Well, we have a dinner to try.
Got you. I don't think I know enough people to answer this. Most of the people I know that I would want to change probably wouldn't be changed by a dinner conversation.
Okay, then what about just what political view would you invite to try and change? Don't try and pick a specific person.
I mean, I feel like I'd like to get the one that's... I mean, I'd probably go for someone who's anti-trans but high up enough that they're causing actual damage, and then try and convince them. But I can't think of any off the top of my head that I'm like, oh, I could change your view, is the thing.
Well, here's the thing, Liam. Do we have to know the people?
No.
Aha! There you go. You don't actually have to know them, Ellie. They can just be an imaginary person.
Yeah, so there you go. Someone that's in the sort of turf movement.
Yeah.
Who's high up in it would be who I would invite.
And if you couldn't change their mind, would you poison them?
No.
Okay. Ashleigh, how about yourself?
Yeah, I'd still go with a pro-life advocate, still mine, because that is still people who are trying to hinge on a woman's legal rights to their own frickin' bodies. And I'm not saying that a person should not be pro-life. My stance is just, if that's your choice, that's your choice. Just don't tell me what to do with my own body. That's all it should be. I don't think we should tell anybody what they should necessarily believe in. I just think that we should be trying to tell people not to enforce that onto other people.
Yeah.
For example,
Yes.
if you don't want to be gay, don't be gay. Obviously we don't choose being gay, but if you have such a problem with gay people, chances are you're not gay. So
Yeah.
just don't be gay. I don't think that's going to be a problem if you're straight. And if you're also a straight cisgender person, you're not going to be transgender, so don't do it. And it's just that basic stuff. If you want to live your life a certain way, live your life a certain way. There are plenty of people...
Just don't force it on
Yeah,
other
there are
people.
plenty of people in this world, as horrible as it is, who are racist or have racist, but they know well enough in society to keep that shit to themselves. So therefore, they are not a danger to society. They know enough to know that their thoughts and feelings are wrong, so they keep it to themselves. So essentially, you are allowed to think and feel how you do, you're just not letting it affect anybody else. So if you want to be racist in your own home. That is fine. It's when you take it outside and you start running around the street going, "You're a fucking N-word." We've gone somewhere bad, and that's not good. If you are someone who is running around outside Planned Parenthood in America screaming, "You're a baby killer," especially if, say, the person who is walking to that door is a 14-year-old rape victim, you're not doing her any good. You are not helping her. You are hurting her. If you were to get raped and get pregnant and you want to keep that child, that is entirely your decision, but you cannot force another person to endure that. And that's the whole thing about it. There are plenty of stances in the world I do not agree with, even some that are very benign. But ultimately, if you do not let it hurt others or impact others, I really don't give a shit what you do with it. It's when it starts affecting other people that becomes an issue. It's like, I feel like those are the same people who say, "I'm just being honest. I'm just giving my opinion." It's like, but you have to remember that the whole point of an opinion is you have to be of mind to know when it's appropriate to give said opinion. And did that person want it in the first place? If they did not, piss off. I have people saying that to me all the time. It's not anything political or anything like that. It's quite a benign situation. And it was when I got my second and third tattoo, this one and the one on the back of my neck. I got them on the same day. And then a little while later, I went back to work. And one of woman, she was older than me, but I actually trained her. And she said, "Oh, I noticed you've got a new tattoo." I said, "Yeah, I just went and got it." I said, "I got this one and the one on the back of my neck." And she looked at the one on the back of my neck. She goes, "Well, I like the one on your wrist. I don't like the one on your neck. That one's ugly." And I said, "I didn't get them for you, and I didn't ask your opinion." And she says, "Well, I'm just telling you." And I said, "But I didn't ask." I said, "I don't need to know. I don't care."
Yeah.
If you're giving someone a compliment, that's perfectly fine. But if you're just going to start throwing out insults, it's like, well, why did I need to know that? What has that done for me?
Makes me think of that scene in like Rocky Horror Picture Show where he introduces Rocky and one of the characters is like, "Oh, I don't like muscles." It's like, "Well, I didn't make him for you."
Yeah. Love that movie.
So
good. Mm-hmm. But it's true.
What about you, Liam?
I'm torn between three very specific people, but I don't think I would have the ability to change any of their opinions. So I don't know how useful it would be. I think one, I might stand a chance, maybe, but that might be me being naively optimistic.
So who are your three people?
So, firstly, Donald Trump.
Yeah, I don't think he was on my list, but I don't think you can change his opinion.
It would be hard. It would be hard.
But
if it was a case of change his opinion or poison him, at least I know I could do something good with this evening.
Well, do I bleep out the bit where you threaten the president do I want the podcast to be monitored by the FBI?
Actually, I'm realizing something. You can change his mind. He changes his own mind depending on what he's going to get out of it. So if you made him a good enough deal, he'll go with any political decision you want. That
is true.
Liam will let him guest on Nerd if he stops being so mean.
Oh god, we'd get so much hate.
So I've said a lot of Trump bashing in my own videos. I haven't had any attacks yet. They're coming. They're coming one day. But
I think if you had him as a guest on your game show, you might get some backlash.
I don't want anything to do with that man. I would punch him.
Yes. So the second person, Rupert Murdoch.
Why Rupert?
The media mogul.
Yeah, because he is in control of a lot of like the British sort of tabloid newspapers, right? So those like right-wing agendas that get pushed out typically seem to come from him and his viewpoints. So if you could change his mind, then all of that media stuff that falls under his umbrella would hopefully start aligning more with his new views that aren't shit.
As someone that works in the UK media, that's not how it works. And if you changed his mind, nothing would change.
You think?
I can confirm that the way that news outlets work is they have an audience that they have acquired over years of being a company, and then they write for that audience, not because they're told to. In fact, Rupert Murdoch, if I don't know which ones he runs. I think he might run mine, maybe. But anyway, I think basically our editorial department functions completely independently of every other department because there can't be influence from the higher-ups, because that immediately ruins journalistic integrity.
Is that a thing that still exists?
But yeah, exactly, yeah. That's a genuine thing that we get told a lot when we try and say, hey, that thing you just wrote is really shitty and maybe you should change it. And then we get told by editorial, no, journalistic integrity. And then I'm like, oh, go fuck yourself. I might edit some of those swear words out because I do work for the company and people might know who that is. And I need to be careful.
Okay, so my third person, who I think maybe I might stand a chance with, Piers Morgan.
Oh, God.
Oh, just no, leave him. Don't bother.
Because I feel like he says this shit just to get a reaction. So you can just sit him down and be like,
yeah, no, you're so weirdly defensive of Piers Morgan and Katie Hopkins, and they're just, for some reason, you think they're like nice people that are doing it for publicity.
Which I don't think they're nice. I just think they're somewhat twisted, and they're like, oh, I get attention by saying these horrible things, and I get money for it, so I'm going to keep doing it.
Well, there's your problem. You actually have less of a chance of changing someone's mind when that's not their actual mindset. If they're doing it for financial gain or for attention, then they're doing it for something that they're going to get out of it. So you can't just go and say, well, this is bad. It's like, well, I already knew that. I just don't care. But if it's a person whose opinion is something they firmly believe and you're just trying to give them a different perspective on it, they're going to possibly be a bit more open. But if you're saying, they're like, well, I already knew this was fucking bad, I don't agree with it, I'm just after the attention for it, then you're fucked. There's no hope there. So I don't know if Piers Morgan believes the shit he spews, or he just does it because of how the attention he gets out of it. If that is the case, that's never changed.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the last scene in the movie we're talking about, where they talk to someone who claims not to believe any of the viewpoints that he has been spouting on the TV.
He is the voice of discourse.
And then does maybe...
Oh, so I'm going to end up poisoned.
Yeah, sure, probably. I mean, that might just happen to you anyway.
Yeah, that's true. So, okay, this might be a dumb question, but did anyone else think that the ending was slightly ambiguous, or were you pretty much like... Yeah?
That is exactly how I described it in my review a couple of years ago. I said, I love this movie, but the ending is a bit ambiguous, and that kind of bugs me. Because, I form the opinion that he killed them. That is pretty much where I'm going with this. But I don't know why. I mean, I love that he was the first character who could come along and counteract their bullshit. Because they were so certain he was going to be this arrogant arsehole. And he's like, I don't believe any of that shit. I just feed the people what they hear. And they're like, oh shit, how do we argue against that? And then he really flipped the switch on them to the point where they really started to question all the shit they'd done. And by the time they realized, oh, we really fucked up, he's already put 2 and 2 together and goes, these people are killing people. And then he knows he's probably going to be a victim and he turns the tables. But I didn't quite get his speech at the end. I mean, I'm not sure. It didn't sound like he learned it. I didn't understand his ending speech.
No, I don't know whether the implication is that actually he does have all those viewpoints, but he knows, like you were saying, he's one of those people that knows not to say it in certain situations. So he's at a dinner party, why would he be like, oh, because then at the end, or is it saying that, like he said, I do this for what they expect of me because that gives me the power. So because they expect him to run for president, he's like, yeah, sure, I'll do that because that's what my supporters who give me my power want me to do. So I don't know whether it's saying he is what he said or he's the opposite.
I think he is that. I just still didn't understand why he turned the tables on them to kill them and what speech exactly meant. But I do believe he was genuine. He says, I'm just being a voice of discourse. And he's just like, and he's basically going into... He's older than them, and he's going into really intelligent thought process on why these people who believe this shit are so stupid and basically not really worth your time, except in his case when he can get something out of it. And they're all dumbfounded, like, oh shit, it went better. But I did love that aspect, and it's kind of funny that the talk of how his viewers would love for him to become president, it would be so easy for him to do that because he just tells the people what they want to hear. Kind of strange how now America has a president who really just tells people what they want to hear, because we can grab footage from 10-20 years ago where he's saying the opposite of everything he is now, and essentially he was really only saying all those things because it's what these Republican people wanted to hear, and that's how he got elected. I don't think he has, I 100% believe that he's a chauvinistic pig, that's no fucking doubt. I also agree he's a rapist. I will believe that to the nth degree. You cannot say the shit he said. He's flat out said on camera, yes, I kissed her and I groped her, and no, I didn't have consent. And it's like, okay, yeah, you're crazy and a criminal. But on those things, yeah, he's fucked. Everything else, I don't think he has a genuine or original bone in his body. I think he's all full of shit.
Yeah. He's just regurgitating what his fan base want him to say.
Yeah, exactly.
Sort of thing.
It's word salad. It's what it is. You hear him talking, it's just like the same 3 words, just flipped around a few times. He's not actually saying anything, and people are like, oh my god, it's so true, and he's so wise. I'm like, he didn't actually fucking say anything. He said things, but he wasn't actually saying anything. You people are fucking stupid. Yeah. Like, what was it? Oh, God, I can't remember what show it was, but they went around, they were interviewing Trump supporters, and they were I think it was the anniversary of, like, 9/11 or something, and they were saying, so what is your issue? And they said, 9/11, it's all Obama's fault, and it's all this, and the interview's going, Obama wasn't president, George Bush was. And they said, yeah, but it's still Obama's fault. And they're like, he literally was not involved in the situation. He was not even the president of the United freaking States. What are you going on about? And they're just like, well, yeah, but it is his fault. And, because he's from Kenya. And it's like, oh, people don't have a brain cell among you.
Yeah, which is scary.
Yep.
It is scary. And what's worse is now we've got a freaking Trump supporter in politics in Australia now.
Yeah, we've got Brexit, so we're in no position to. We have our own problems.
It's sad. What? Oh, Pauline Hanson is her name. She's this little redhead mole, and she got elected a couple years ago and formed her own political party, which is why she got elected. Which is basically, we're the fucking racist party. And please vote for us. There's not a nice thing. Yep. She's anti-immigration. She's anti-Muslims. She's anti anything that's decent in the world, and pushes the propaganda shit. She got into huge trouble a couple of years ago. She walked into a parliament meeting wearing a burqa.
That's not
covered head to toe. Nobody knew who she was because she was in a full-length burqa. You could not see her face. And she did this big phone reveal where she pulled it all off and went into this speech on the dangers and the shit of letting Muslims into the country. And the speaker was so disgusted and offended by her antics and that she did this whole thing that he essentially basically tried to kick her out of the room. But it was being broadcast and everybody saw it and they were all just going, oh my god.
Oh, hi there, listeners. I bet you're wondering why the show has suddenly just dropped to being me, talking about stuff. Well, everything kind of went wrong at this exact moment. I had already had to use my phone to Skype Ashleigh and Liam because my laptop was refusing to connect. My phone, of course, decided to, at that point, run out of battery, which I resolved by plugging it into a wall. Then it decided it was overheating, so every 10 seconds it would completely shut down. So, that was a bit of a nightmare. And then, as we stayed on the call, Ashleigh's computer decided not to record this last bit. So, suddenly, it's me. You've got me. I'm going to do all of the outro. So, let me wrap this up for you. We decided that I would give the film a 4. Liam thought that was a good idea and also gave it a 4. Ashleigh gave it a 5, I think. If she didn't give it a 5, I'm so sorry, Ashleigh, but I believe you gave it a 5. That's the end of that wrap-up of that culture swap. Good job we did. Next time, on Nerd, me and Liam are doing Love, Death and Robots. So that'd be good. Join us for that. then we did the, like, where can you find people? If you want to follow Ashleigh, which you should, she's at @_movie oracle on Twitter, and her YouTube channel where she does her game show is The Movie Oracle, so go follow her there. You can follow me and Liam at Nerd on Nerd on Twitter. You can email us at nerdonnerdpod@gmail.com, facebook.com/nerdonnerdpod, all one word. We're on YouTube, rate us on iTunes, give us 5 stars. And then I made a funny joke for, you know, how we do the little joke at the end, like, oh, you got any final thoughts? I said I'd poison Liam. And then we all said bye in unison, but I'm the only one here, so bye.